Magi, episode 14, The Hidden Citizens. Of course, it will be in this general area as always. But anyways, of course, this one picks up where the last one left off at. You know, in the last episode, when Titus Alexis attacked Aladdin after their magical battle, well, their battle exam, and it knocked Aladdin out, and Aladdin had the dream about King Solomon's world and how it ended. But, okay, pretty much it picks up where Aladdin had woken up and Titus was sitting in his room. And pretty much Titus, he asked Aladdin how he was doing, and Aladdin was like, I'm alright now, I suppose. Well, he was like, I'm alright now. And Titus apologized for pretty much attacking him after their battle. So, it came to it that Titus admitted that he is not a Magi, but he is pretty much Magi's advocate for Lady Scheherazade and Liam. So Aladdin was a little saddened by this, and Titus asked him who he was or what Magi he worked for, and of course Aladdin decided to tell him the truth and tell him that he was a Magi himself. He wasn't working for any Magis. So, but he did, in a way, even though he's not necessarily working for Sinbad, he's pretty much made it seem like he is working for Sinbad's country in Sandria. So, through all this, Titus was a little upset by the fact that Aladdin wasn't a Magi's advocate, that he was a Magi himself, so Titus felt like they really didn't have anything else to say to each other, and that they really didn't have anything in common because Titus isn't in fact a Magi, he's just the Magi's advocate. So Titus left, and then the next day Aladdin and Sphinxes were about to go to the rest of the districts in the city because since they got into the first corridor, they have authorization to go to the actual city and not just be like kept within the school. So they decided to go into the city, and Titus comes up out of nowhere and he was like, well, thank you for waiting for me, Aladdin. And Sphinx is like, why is he tagging along, blah blah blah. And Titus almost gave up Aladdin's real identity about him being a Magi because he said that they were working together to help each other on their crucial missions. And Sphinx was like, crucial missions? And it's like, yes, we as Magis. And then Aladdin like cut him off. So they went into the city, and as they were going into the city, they were just looking at all the sights and everything, and they noticed all these magical tools. Like, pretty much everything in the city is powered by magic tools. Like, making crops, getting water, power, everything is powered by magic tools. So, I don't know why they didn't raise the question as to how they're getting all this magic, but they noticed this, and then Titus, he did something rather peculiar. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but he wasn't even really concerned about like the magic tools in the city or anything like that. He was more concerned about the little things like seeing a cat or seeing a mom and a baby, or even looking at the shops walking around in the city, because it seems like he never really got to do any of that when he was in Liam. So Titus was so excited about all the little things in the city. And they went, as they went through, they had authorization to go through the second authorization district, second and down, so it's between 2 and 5. They can't go into the first authorization district because that's more for like the high level magicians and everybody. So they went through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and they decided they wanted to go to the 5th level authorization district. So they asked someone, and they kind of just scoffed at them and was like, you don't want to go there, that's only for trash. So this raised questions in them. So Aladdin and Sphinx went back to their room, and of course Titus went back to his room, and he was talking to Lady Scheherazade, and he was pretty much telling her about all the little things that he saw in the city, and the fact that he got to walk around in the city, and Lady Scheherazade told him that he needs to keep his mind focused on the task at hand, not to get distracted by unnecessary things. So this kind of brought Titus back down a little bit. But after this, while Aladdin and Sphinx were sleeping, Titus like pretty much broke into their room and woke Aladdin up, and he told him that they were going to the 5th Authorization District. But since they don't know where it is, they're going to break into the 1st Authorization District, and they were going to disguise themselves as instructors to get in. So they went to the 1st Authorization District, and when they went to walk through the barrier, they got shocked because they didn't have the right authorization to get into the 1st Authorization District. And this raised suspicion in the guards, and then out of nowhere another instructor comes up and he was like, I just saw you, well, you were just with me. So it was pretty much, how could you have gotten here so fast if you were just with me? But as this was happening, Sphinctus took down his cloak, well, not his cloak, but Titus was using light magic on them to make them look like instructors. So Sphinctus got out of it and pretty much used a healing spell to knock the 2 guards and the instructor out so they could get the medal that they needed to get into the 1st Authorization District. And once they got in there, they found out, like, they figured out where all the districts were. They found, well, Aladdin found a map. And it was like the 1st Authorization District has about 500 people. The 2nd Authorization District has about, I want to say about 8,000. No, not 8,000. Has about, I want to say 2,000. 3rd Authorization District has about 8,000. And then 4th Authorization District has about 20,000. And then the 5th Authorization District makes up 200,000 out of the 300,000 people that live in the city as a whole. So they were very concerned about this, considering that there are 200,000 people unaccounted for right now within the city. So they found the 5th Authorization District, and they went down there, and while they were down there, they were still using Titus's light magic to pretty much cloak themselves so they wouldn't get in trouble, and as they were walking, it just kind of like dissipated. And they were like, why did your light magic not keep working? And Titus realized that even though it's gradual, their Maglite was being pretty much siphoned out of them as they were standing down there. And you could see it coming out of everyone else too. And as they were walking, a little girl named Margo fell like in the middle of the street. And of course they went to go help her, and when they tried to get somebody that like tried to see who she belonged to, or tried to get someone to help them, everybody just kind of looked at them and went about their business. So Titus decided that he was going to use his light magic to help her, because his light magic pretty much shielded them from getting their Maglite siphoned, because her Maglite was nearly almost depleted, and once it gets depleted you die. So he was going to save her. And in this, one of the leaders came to them and was like, pretty much like, they pretty much live down there as a Maglite production facility. Like, they're the ones who are creating all the Maglite for the magical tools that pretty much fuel the upper levels of the city. And but the bad thing is they don't have a problem with it, because they get to drink and have sex and all this kind of stuff as much as they want to, and they don't even have to work, because their bodies are being used as a Maglite facility, which is really messed up, the fact that they would let themselves live down there like that, but they still do. So in that, and then Margo, of course, she is such a sweet little girl. She was like, she just wanted to learn how to read. Her mom had passed away a couple of days prior because she was sick, and when she got sick, the rest of her Maglite pretty much got taken out of her, and she died. So Margo's pretty much been living by herself, trying to make it, and she was about to die too because she has a heart condition. So, but she said she wanted to learn how to read. Her mom told her to learn how to read, so then maybe that way she would become a doctor or a scholar, and then she could get out of there. But she knows that she doesn't have very long to live, so that's very saddening. But in that, she was pretty much like, well, Titus and everybody, Titus, Aladdin, and Sphinctus told her that they would come down there and help her learn how to read and everything. And she was like, no, I don't want to learn how to read. I just want you to tell me about the city above, because I know that I'm not going to live long enough to be a scholar or a doctor. And she said just hearing about the cities and everything above ground is just amazing for her to even think about or imagine. So in that, of course, Aladdin used Hugo to, well, Ugo, to make like a sand replica of the city so she could see it. And he made like a little cat that walked on the bed and stuff. And then after all that, they walked back outside to talk to pretty much the elders in the city. And they're like, even though, well, living there is better than living above ground, because in living above ground they would have been slaves or anything to that extent, and they were pretty much incompetent to take care of themselves. So living underground, even though their Maglite is being siphoned, is much better than anything that they could have managed for themselves. And as they were doing this, someone in the first level came down to pretty much do a head count of everybody. And this guy is really creepy, and he had like a whip with a flower on it. He looked anorexic. Anyways, he came down there so they could do their head count to make sure that everybody was still alive. And after they finished the head count, of course, everybody was alive. And Margo passed out. And of course, Aladdin, Sphinx, and Titus saw this because they were hiding because they didn't want to get caught being down there when they weren't supposed to be. And when Margo fell, the man picked her up and pretty much was going to throw her in the hole, because anybody who's sick or about to die gets thrown into the hole, and since they can't fly, that's pretty much the end of them, regardless of whether they're alive or even able to keep on living or not. And the elder came up and he pretty much started pouring his heart out to this man. He was like, this little girl has, like, she's committed no sin, so why should you just throw her down into the hole, pretty much, because it's not even her fault that she's down here. It's more her parents' fault, because she was forcibly born into this world. It wasn't her fault that she's down there. And the man just threw her into the hole and was like, all goys that aren't sufficient enough to produce Maglite are nothing but trash. That's pretty much what he said. And as she was falling, she was pretty much thinking she just wished that she could have actually seen the real world. And as she was falling, Titus, Aladdin, and Sphinx came to save her. Well, as they were coming to save her as she was falling. And then that was the end of the episode. So, this episode was pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. Because I love Magi. I love this anime. I love the manga too. So I can't really say what I think is going to happen next. But I would love to hear what y'all think is going to happen next for people who don't read the manga. But I'm looking forward to seeing more and more chapters being animated, because it is getting really good and I'm so excited. But anyways, please remember to comment, rate, and subscribe. And this is TsubakiSwagg saying adios.